With Zach LaVine hitting the trade blocks from the Chicago Bulls, we can speculate what the trade might look like if he were to end up on the Raptors, but it doesn't really mean much if the Raptors don't actually have interest in the player. But according to Shams Charania, the Raptors are expected to have some level of interest in landing the player, but is he actually right? Let's get into it. Welcome to Amateur Sports, everybody. This is the YouTube channel that is completely dedicated to providing you Toronto Raptors coverage and videos just like this, as well as live stream watch parties and some added YouTube shorts. If you like what you see from today's video, make sure to smash that like button. It really does make a difference to the channel. When you hit that like button, it only takes a second out of your day. And for more Raptors content, subscribe to the channel and help me on my road to 16,000 subscribers. But yes, Shams Charania has reported on the Zach LaVine situation going around the NBA, and there are a few teams specifically that seem to have interest in a player right up front, and it's the heavy hitters that you would normally expect for this sort of thing. The Los Angeles Lakers, the Miami Heat, and the Philadelphia 76ers. But another team, according to Shams, who reportedly is going to have some sort of level of interest in acquiring the player from the Bulls, is the Toronto Raptors. Just listening exactly to what he said.
I'm told the Lakers, Heat, 76ers are all expected to have some level of interest in Zach LaVine. I'm told the Raptors are also expected to have some level of interest in LaVine. Masai Ujiri is always aggressive in his approach, and it would be interesting a team with Zach LaVine if you're able to keep guys like Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby. But the Raptors are a team to watch in this as well.
Now, obviously, Shams Charania is a top 2 source in the NBA for valid information, along with Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, but how much credibility can we put into this specific information, despite the fact that we can really trust Shams with the information that he always gives out? The Lakers, the Heat, the 76ers seem like some easy ones that are going to have interest in the player, although not really much the Lakers can do at the moment to make this trade. They have to wait until mid-December when the free agent signings they made in the offseason become eligible to trade once again. But specifically, going out of his way here to highlight the Toronto Raptors as a potential trade candidate to acquire Zach LaVine. If you want my thoughts and opinions specifically on whether or not the Raptors should make this trade, you should go back to my previous video. But in this video, we are specifically discussing the validity of these reports and if Masai Ujiri is actually going to pursue a trade here, because Shams directly cites Masai Ujiri as somebody who likes to be aggressive in these trade markets, somebody who really wants to get involved in these trade negotiations and see if he can land a big player. Obviously, Masai Ujiri is well known for the Kawhi Leonard trade that helped orchestrate the Raptors championship in 2019. But as far as aggression from Masai Ujiri, I think for fans on the outside looking in, not as in tune with the Raptors, you see this aggression from Masai Ujiri. You see somebody who wants to put a winning team out on the court. You see somebody who's willing to make the tough decisions sometimes, trading DeMar DeRozan, the franchise player, in order to make that happen. But 2019, that's kind of a while ago at this point. Masai Ujiri, in terms of his aggression to make trades to make the team better, well, we just haven't seen any of that since the championship. The Raptors, in reality, have made the least amount of transactions in the NBA since that championship victory. And for a team that lost so many significant players, specifically significant players completely for nothing, like Kawhi Leonard, Denny Green, Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, and the latest, Fred VanVleet, potentially in this summer, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent Jr., who are all upcoming free agents. Losing players of that caliber, losing a multitude of players who are championship caliber roster players for nothing and not really doing much to replace them doesn't really showcase aggression to me. Maybe trading those guys before their contracts run out. And I get the Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green one. Their contracts were expiring after the championship. There was nothing we could have done about that. But for the other players involved in this list, like you'd even talk about Kyle Lowry. Yeah, we got something for him, but there was a lot more potential the Raptors could have gotten at the trade deadline before losing Kyle Lowry to the Miami Heat. There was a potential to trade Kyle Lowry at the deadline in 2021 to the 76ers, and reports suggest Tyrese Maxey would have been coming back the Toronto Raptors' way. That's a little bit of a miss on Masai Ujiri's part. So as far as the aggression is concerned for Ujiri since that championship, there really just hasn't been any of that aggression to speak of, because we have the least amount of transactions since that point, and the only significant trade we've made since that point would be, like, I guess you could say it's the Gary Trent Norman Powell trade. Ultimately, the significance of that trade, yeah, you lost a bit of a fan favorite player, you lost a good player, somebody the Raptors could definitely use right now is Norman Powell, but Gary Trent, as a whole wasn't much of a downgrade. You could argue he was an upgrade, but that trade as a whole, pretty level in terms of the output we got out of that trade. The Raptors didn't want to risk Norman Powell's free agency. They went for Gary Trent Jr., who they could get for a longer period of time. Gary Trent was younger, had more room to develop. The trade made sense at the time. The trade made a lot of sense at the time. At this present point, again, it's debatable whether or not there was a win or a loss of a trade for the Raptors, but ultimately that trade didn't do much to move the needle for the Raptors and their future aspirations. So the last time the Raptors actually made an aggressive approach, an aggressive trade, was that 2019 or 2018 trade rather, to get Kawhi Leonard in exchange for DeMar DeRozan. Now, since then, they've certainly been involved in these trade negotiations. They pursued Kevin Durant hard last summer, and it really looked like for a while they were the front runners to actually land Kevin Durant from the Brooklyn Nets, but they were never really willing to go all the way to make that trade happen. In the most recent summer, they had interest in acquiring Damian Lillard, but never really wanted to be a serious contender to actually land the player because they weren't willing to dangle OG Anunoby. So Masai Ujiri is known around the league and is starting to gather a pretty poor reputation at this point for always involving himself in these trade negotiations, but refusing to actually involve himself seriously, first of all, and refusing to really actually pull the trigger on anything. He's gathering this reputation of somebody like a little kid who maybe you're trading cards with your friend, and just at the last moment, right before you make a deal, they just completely pull out of the deal and walk away from it. So that's the kind of reputation Masai Ujiri is starting to get. And look, I don't think it's necessarily a horrible thing that the person who runs your franchise, the person who has control over the players in and out of your franchise, along with Bobby Webster, I don't think it's necessarily a bad reputation to have, that they want to make sure they get a winning deal. They want to make sure that they don't get fleeced. But the aggression here, yeah, Masai is going to always involve himself, but how seriously is that going to be? How aggressive is he going to be? So in this situation with Zach LaVine, first of all, there is a way for the Raptors to make this trade happen. It would have to cost them first-round picks. There's a viable way to do this. Basically, Gary Trent Jr., Thaddeus Young, and whatever salary filling method you want to have alongside of those two players, along with maybe 1 or 2 first-round picks, some assortment of picks from the Raptors going to the Bulls would likely get this deal done. But how much does that make sense for this team, really? Especially when you consider the current state of the team. Is that really going to move the needle enough to warrant making that trade at this point? People want to talk about Siakam going the other way to the Chicago Bulls. Would they really have interest in doing that? Like, they're trading Zach LaVine. It feels like they want to start working on hitting the reset button in Chicago. Is that a trade that's going to make sense for both parties to consider? All of these things up in the air, but ultimately when it comes to Masai Ujiri, whenever a big fish becomes available in the trade market, he just likes to dip his toes in the water, and that's about it. He dips his toes in the water, he sends out feelers, he's kind of interested to see, okay, well, what is the valuation the team has for this player? He wants to see if he can get the absolute best deal possible. That's not like the worst thing. Again, like, that's not necessarily a bad thing for the person running your franchise to do. He wants to cut the best deal possible, and he's always going to send out feelers if he can find that best deal possible. But it's starting to get himself a little bit of a negative reputation here, and perhaps that has hindered his ability to strengthen this team with trades in the last few years, which has seen a bit of a decline in the product for the Raptors, a bit of a decline in talent overall on the roster for the Raptors. So we'll see how he works to mitigate that. As I've said in previous videos, my opinions on Masai Ujiri, Bob Webster front office, have slowly faded and faded and faded just from a complete level of inaction overall in the roster construction and the asset management of this team. And I seriously doubt out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Masai Ujiri is just going to start to be aggressive again here and make a move for Zach LaVine. So what Shams is saying, will the Raptors have a level of interest? Sure, that's a pretty open term. What degree of significance is that level going to be? I think it's going to be very minuscule. I think it's basically going to be Masai Ujiri says, hey, what's he worth? Can we give you this little package? No? Okay, oh well. And that's really all there's going to be to it. What do you make of this situation? Do you think Masai Ujiri is going to be aggressive for LaVine? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. That's all from me today. Smash that like button if you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you again next time for another video.